Hey, you guys. How we doing? Johnny Akzam here. Of course, you know that because you're looking at my page or whatever. A little Johnny Cashy today in black with the black background. Okay, I just want to talk about something because, everybody gets upset about they get heated on social media, and I think most of it has to do with the fact, of course, that there's no voice inflection, that we're just sharing thoughts, and if you don't know who Key and Peele is, Jordan Peele and Keegan Michael Keyes, they're a comedy duo, and they're very funny, and they did this skit. On one side, he's texting, and he's kind of already agitated, and the other side, he's really relaxed and he's reading things, and they both read them so differently. And I'll share that link. I've shared it before, but it's really kind of interesting to look at how we read text and interpret it. We are biased, and so we can't stop that. So I wanted to shoot this video to talk about this Our Revolution Minnesota endorsement thing, okay? And first of all, let's talk about the process of the questionnaire, which looked to be very fair, and you may have liked or not liked the questions. You may have thought there should have been other questions on there, which there probably should have been. There was something brought up about race, inequality with prisons, things like that, that I don't remember there being on the questionnaire, and somebody brought that up, and it was an oversight. It wasn't purposely ignored. So that's one of those things we want to fix, right? One of the other things that we found out about, and again, this was, of course, discussed among the board members, but there's not really an open forum of discussion. And I went to the meeting, but a lot of it's already been discussed, and they're talking amongst themselves about what they've already discussed, and they're ready to move forward with a vote. And so the public aspect of the discussion is really kind of interrupting their process. It's not part of the process. It's interrupting it. And so I had some objections to things. I said, hey, and I made a couple suggestions that were adopted, like let's get rid of outstate in all of our language. I think we can all fairly say that something a little different, like Greater Minnesota or whatever, is better, because I just dislike that outstate. I don't like it. I never have, because I live in the state of Minnesota. I've lived all over and worked all over the country. This is the first state I've ever been in where I've heard that outstate used for areas outside of a metropolitan area. So that was something that was cool. But as far as like certain processes that were already decided on, like the endorsement process and stuff like that, that was all pretty much kind of there. And they weren't ready to rewrite the whole thing in a one-day meeting. Now, I had objections to certain parts of it at the time, and I raised those objections and hoped that they take them into consideration. I have absolutely zero power other than that, okay? Other than the ability to raise my hand and say, hey, I don't really agree with that. Maybe we could try this. That doesn't sound right. Is there another option? I'm not someone like Bill Ham who's sitting here blasting ranked choice voting without giving us an option to replace it with. If I find something's wrong, it's usually because I think there's something that's better already. So this takes us to this 90%, 10% decision, 90% being the questionnaire and the responses in the questionnaire, and then 10% being we don't know. All we know is that the endorsement committee, who was supposed to have absolutely zero power over the process of endorsements, which obviously they say they still don't, but this kind of media blast is what I consider control. To say, oh, we think this person's better, that person's better, that's establishment stuff. Don't you guys get that? That's DNC stuff. To sit in a room and say, I think this person's better because I like them better and because they speak better, and they're... Who are you to judge based on certain characteristic criteria? Look at who our president is. People obviously responded to that nutcase. That doesn't mean I want to be that nutcase, but what I'm telling you is you can't sit back and judge things like viability. professionalism. See, I don't look very professional right now. But if I paused this video and I went into the room for about 2 minutes and came back out with a shirt and tie and a jacket on, I would look all of a sudden much more professional. Well, is that how you're judging professionalism? Or is it how I speak? Do I use proper language? Or do I speak with a lot of slang? Yo, what's up, brother, man? You know, you got to listen to me about this, man. We got to be front. We got to be straight. Is that part of your professionalism judgment? Hey, this person they don't speak like we think a person should speak to be running for office. Again, establishment thinking. That's what we're talking about here. Now, if you want to make decisions based on this criteria, that's fine. But I think what you should do is lay that criteria out to the membership and say, okay, these are the things that we're deciding on, just like figure skating, okay? If that's going to be your decision process, at least they have categories where the judges show, I judged 8.5 on style, I judged 7.9 on originality. So those types of things, there's something for the membership to go on and say, okay, committee member number 1. They don't even have, they can be anonymous. Committee member number 1 on the items of viability, professionalism, maybe history, voting record, whatever those things are. See, we don't know. We're asking, what are these metrics that you come up with these gaps about how somebody, which I'm honestly going to say, look, I've already given into the fact based on the release of those charts that I'm probably not coming out today with the endorsement. I get that. So we move forward. How do we fix this process so that candidates who, for instance, have a little bit more progressive integrity behind them aren't subject to judging methods by people who are using establishment formats? Because that's what this is. It's a way to distinguish people separate from one another based on criteria that is subjective. How do you decide somebody is viable or not? What is the metrics you're using? Do you have a chart? Is there an app you're using? Because they said Bernie wasn't viable for all of 2015 until he all of a sudden started becoming viable. And they said, this guy's viable. He could be elected. So then the DNC went into overtime, of course, trying to bash any of his hopes. So when you say somebody's not viable, you are therefore perpetuating the notion that they're not viable. You do understand that, right? We went through that with Bernie. So if you want to talk about professionalism, I understand, like I tell my son, listen, you don't want to get tattoos, things like this, unless you're going to be wanting to work in an environment where you're not judged by those things. But he's 17, he's not 18. He's talking about getting a tattoo right here or something like that. I said, no, I don't even want you to think about doing stuff like that until you've made a decision as to where you're going with your life. If you're going to be a tattoo artist, if you're going to be a musician, if you're going to be someone where, for me, a politician with a big scorpion on his neck, that's going to be a hard sell, right? So I'm trying to explain it in that way. There's nothing wrong with wanting to have a scorpion on your neck. Just realize that in society, it's going to kick off how people view you. And it's something that we're trying to end in society, but it's what we have to live with right now. I don't make the rules, I just know they exist, and I'm trying to help change them. So when we talk about things, Mr. Olson, about airing dirty laundry, Jesus, that's exactly what these organizations are supposed to be doing, is airing dirty laundry of candidates and saying, hey, we definitely don't want these people in. We definitely don't want that person in. This guy is good. This guy's got weaknesses. This woman, she's really strong in all these areas. She's got these weaknesses. These are things they admit to. These are things that we as a group look at from the outside that maybe they don't see, that we see. I get that, but tell us what those metrics are. Don't obfuscate them and say, oh, well, you want us to air your dirty laundry? Absolutely. I got nothing but dirty laundry to air. That's why I got into this. You think that my background is better than all of my opponents? No, it's actually a liability in some cases. The fact that I've had DUIs and I've gone through treatment. Some people say, oh, I look at that as a triumph in your life. And I do too. That's why I don't look at it as a negative. But there is a certain portion of the population that are going to look at that and say, oh, we can't have somebody like that representing us, even though half of the population can identify with that. We don't want that kind of person because, oh, they're not a normal person. They're not a politician that sits up and gets themselves all prepared to be fake for the cameras and says this thing and that thing and then doesn't do a damn thing. See, that's what you want. You want somebody that can say all the right things. Well, that's not me. Get that straight. I'm not going to say everything that's going to make you happy because that's not my job. My job is to stir it up and to get people talking about the issues among themselves. That's what this is about. It's not me going around telling people, no, your problem's not black people. No, your problem's not white people. Trust me, I know. No, that's not it. It's about getting these people together so they can see they've been lied to by the establishment and the ruling class. And realizing that when they're blaming religion and race and economic suffrage on each other, that it's really the ruling class that's doing this. And bringing these people, we've got farmers in Minnesota that do not identify with the Democratic Farm and Labor Party. How do I change that? I can't change the party because they refuse to change. So how do I tell a farmer that, I understand that you feel like you've been forgotten and left by the party, so that's why you voted for Trump? But I just need you to trust the party. I just need you. I know they're lying and denying things and pretending like they're not in the wrong. But I need you to trust that I'm going to change the party. I'm not here to change the party. The party has already proven itself a failure to the people. And I'm not going to kowtow and kiss ass to the party. Because the party hasn't done anything for me in 20 years. They elected Obama, who did nothing for me. Oh, well, he did this, he did the ACA. That's all masking. When you dig under the surface of all of this, it just fed into the corporate giant, the mechanism that we've been suffering from for over 30 years. So quit selling me on Obama. I lived and voted for him twice and I got nothing in return. The banks got bailed out. I didn't. So when the party wants to start touting to me about how they're supposed to be this way and just let's move on and let's get past it. We cannot get past something unless we are willing to fix it. So tell me, what is it that you gave me a 0.2% for in all of the activities and activism that I've done? Because I'm going to tell you, it's been no secret, guys, that I'm an activist candidate. I'm not a polished establishment candidate. And what do activists do? They get in the mix of it and they say, this is what needs to happen and this is what needs to change. And if you don't want leaders like that, I understand. You may not. But you don't have a right to paint to a society of people that this is the type of leader they are just based on your own opinion. And you have to get that through your thick head. With great power comes great responsibility. A small room of people coming to a conclusion about somebody's viability, professionalism, or anything else that is subjective is not democratic, and it needs to be fixed. And I will still continue to take this stance if I was somehow saved by the membership in the vote. I will still fight for this to be abolished because it's no way to lead the membership into making decisions. So let's get that straight. And if candidates are afraid to have their dirty laundry aired, then they should not be candidates. They shouldn't have to worry about their dirty laundry. I mean, I got to do some laundry, but you know what? I'm an open book. I I went into this full well aware of the fact that we have technology that people will find every detail about my life. But guess what? I tell people about every detail of my life because everything that's happened to us in our past has brought us to who we are today, and I'm not ashamed of who I am. And not you, or not naysayers, or even team members who don't happen to be team players are going to tell me and convince me otherwise. So by all means, our Revolution Minnesota, express to us and explain what that little portion of that secret dark room closed off decision making process was, because we're sick of those processes. We were yelling this at you as members from the very beginning when we weren't getting minutes and there were elections being made and people had no idea how the outcome was that way because there was no discussion open and it was all private. And the membership raised holy hell. And they said, we won't have it. And yet you think it's okay for a committee to do the same thing? If a member, such as Kevin Shannon, violates ethic rules, there should be a process for a grievance and a hearing. And if that person is found innocent, they want to stick around and they don't feel their reputation's been damaged by it, whatever the case is, because this is politics and that does happen, just like Al Franken. He could have stuck around and he could have forced this ethics committee, but he would have lost credibility with a lot of people and he already knew that. So it's like, why stick around where people are going to be sticking their noses up at you, not want to work with you, things like that. The establishment had already done him in regardless of the allegations. So I understand that. I understand that's a reality in any organization. But if you're firm with your innocence, then you shouldn't do what Al Franken did. If he was so firm in his innocence, he should have never let the establishment push him out. And that's coming from somebody who is pissed off at Al Franken for giving his superdelegate vote over to somebody who didn't get the populist vote. So I'm fair. I want what's fair. I want to see what's fair. And I don't like it when I see injustice and unfairness in organizations that are pulled together to fight for those very things. I've been dreaming of seeing in our revolution chapter, I don't live in the cities down here. I've been trying to get friends and burners to put one together since it was announced. But Jeff Weaver with this and that, and we're mad at him, and there's more. I don't want to be involved with that. I'm more interested now in draft Bernie, and I think I want to do a Democratic Socialists of America, or I like Socialist Alternative better. I've heard it for the whole year plus, and the whole time my heart's been with our revolution, trying to pull this together, knowing, and as soon as Nina Turner was announced as the president, I went back to all these people and I said, come on, man. We love Nina. She stands up for what she believes in. She don't take crap. That's one of the things we love about her. And then when somebody else tries it, well, you're no Nina Turner. No shit. But she's a leader that I'm trying to follow in those footsteps. I'm trying to say, okay, look, I'm no Bernie Sanders. And there's a lot of things Bernie did that I don't agree with. Like letting his opponent skate by and playing Mr. Nice Guy. I think that candidates' issues are part of the issues. We've got a candidate, he ranked lowest on the Our Revolution, Dan Feehan, who basically flew in here, dropped in here after not being here for 20 years because he lost his job in Washington. Well, I lost my job too, but I've been in the district. And I was running for Congress when I lost my job. And that's why I lost my job. He lost his job because he put himself in a career where every 4 years his boss changes. That's not my fault. And he sure in the hell doesn't have the right to come here after 20 years, longer than my son's entire life, and then say, hey, I got a bunch of money in my pocket from a bunch of friends back in Washington, and they say I should run for Congress. Get out of here. That's the kind of stuff we're fighting against. And as a candidate, I'm going to stand up against that other candidate who's doing that. It's okay for me to speak out about other candidates in other races and say, we don't want this kind of candidate. winning in Georgia or in California, but when it comes to my own race, I am not allowed to stand up to my opponents and say, look, I don't want to see this person. I don't trust that kind of leadership. If you think it's okay to even do that, then you're not the kind of leader I want to see. I would much rather put my support behind somebody like Vicki Jensen, who is admittedly more centrist and wants to work with insurance companies, but at least she's honest about it. And at least I know where she stands. I have nothing but the utmost respect for her, for all of that. We disagree completely on many issues. But at least I know when I look at Vicki's eyes, I know what I'm getting. And I know that she's not going to bulldoze me over pandering and trying to make me feel good that, oh, she's got progressive values that are in line with mine, when she doesn't. She has a more pragmatic approach. And I respect her for being honest about that. What I don't respect is somebody who thinks they can come into this district out of nowhere and just tell people that I somehow am the best person to represent you. And so for everybody who thinks that's a bad idea for me to talk about that, I'm no longer associating with them, because I didn't get into this race to be stifled and censored. I got into this race to try to help fix the system that's broken. Win or lose, that's what this campaign is about. Revealing and replacing the broken systems that we live under. And if you're going to start an organization that professes to fix those issues, and you start implementing issues just like it, then I'm going to start calling you out too. I've called out Justice Democrats in brand new Congress. They've done the same thing. They've propped up their own candidates, which they say they have the right to do, and they do. But with great power comes great responsibility. And they are practicing DNC tactics under the guise of a progressive organization. And there are progressives that aren't having it. So decide what you want as we move forward in 2018. Because your tact and your niceness, and we don't want to be known as somebody who ruffles people's feathers. By all means, you can't always just say things that you think. That's the problem. That's what's gotten us here, is being afraid to stand up and say what needs to be said finally. I did not get involved and go into debt and facing eviction again just to let the same thing happen. I could have stayed out of all of this and kept living my life the way I was, getting by and letting politics take care of itself. But each and every one of us knew that enough is enough. And for better or worse, the reason we got involved was to change this system. So either be a part of changing it or get the hell out of the way. I don't care how nice you are to me. I don't care how much you smile. I don't care how wonderful you are. Those smiles while you're doing things that are just against, because I have people smile at me and say, well, the caucusing and everything like that, that's just the way we've done it. And I love the tradition of the DFL and I love the history of it. And I just don't want you to upset it because I love it. That doesn't mean it's right. And it doesn't mean just because they're being nice to me, they have my best interest in heart. We all know the parable about the bird who is flying and gets frozen, and then the cow comes by and poops on him, and then it warms him up, and then the cat eats him. And not everybody who's crapping on you is out to try to hurt you, and not everybody who, I can't remember. You know what I mean? I don't have it spot by spot, but just because somebody's being nice and trying to be diplomatic doesn't mean they're not trying to stab you in the back or do the wrong thing. And I don't buy it. I buy actions. That's what I buy. I buy proof, evidence, transparency, and actions. You show me how you came about this, and if I agree with it, I'll agree with it. If I don't, I'll tell you I don't and why. And I'll try to ask questions. And I'll try to say, okay, what is it? What is it I'm not understanding? You're justifying this as if it's okay, and I don't get it. So why is it okay? Don't get defensive. Don't get mad. You just don't understand and run off with your ball. Try to explain it to me, because if it doesn't make, if it's not like it doesn't make sense, then it usually doesn't jive. You know, one thing Judge Judy, and I know she might be a Republican, whatever. I watch Judge Judy because it's funny, and it's just law. It's just yes, no, you did it right, you did it wrong. But one of the things that she always says is you don't have to have a good memory if you're telling the truth. And if it doesn't make sense, it's probably not true. So we can apply those types of things to our policy making and say, you know, this just does not make sense for the American people or for the membership or whatever. And if it doesn't make sense to me, it's not going to make sense to more people, which is going to cause this influx, which therefore starts causing distrust. I don't have to sow the distrust. It's already there. By vocalizing it and bringing it up, it does not make it exist. What it does is it puts it on the table for us to air out. That's what needs to be aired out. Yes, air out the dirty laundry. Put it on the table. But when you keep it obfuscated and hidden and, well, how did you come up with those? I don't agree with those numbers. There's a lot of people that will sit back and talk about the process being wrong and won't speak out and say anything about it. There's a lot of people who voted for Trump in this district who will say to you they did so because there was no other choice. But if you go into the DFL units and try to tell them that's what the voters have been saying, they treat you as if you're the one that's the villain. And you are just being the messenger. I'm just being the messenger, telling you what these people are telling me. Farmers telling me, I don't like the Democratic Party. I don't trust them. Farmers saying that I don't trust the DF, capital FL, farmer, labor. I don't trust the party. Well, why is that? And don't shoot me for telling you that that's the problem people are having. Just accept the fact that they're having it, and I'm a messenger saying, how can we fix this? So all this conversation all boils down to this idea of opening up our candidates to scrutiny, opening up every avenue so that people understand who they are, what their past is. You know, I've overcome great suffering in my life. So I have already come to terms with the mistakes that I made and how bad they look, but I also look at the great deal of success I've had since then as a result of my suffering and struggling. That's how I overcame those liabilities in my past. Other people don't have a criminal record. I get that. Those are liabilities they don't have to deal with. But they have other liabilities. They have other weaknesses, like being wishy-washy, not making a decision, not committing to something. When you ask somebody, are you willing to do this? And they don't give you a direct, I can't commit to that right now. What I can tell you is I'll think about it. That is not leadership. Let's get that straight. That is politicianing. It's not even politicking. It's politicianing. It's rhetoric. It's pandering. It's pacifying. It's walking the fence so that you don't offend. And I want to teach people that I can't offend you if I'm being honest with you. Get over it. Honesty should not be offensive. Truth should not be offensive. And how someone delivers it can sometimes be the difference between how it's perceived and the wall it needs to go through. Believe me, I've sat with some pretty hard-headed people who just don't want to face the facts and the truth until you force them to open their mind and to stop viewing things through this obfuscated goggles of their own biases and just let them lift that away. Once you lift that away, now look again. Now what do you see? That's all this is about. Helping people lift their own biases and bigotry and the things that block us from identifying with each other. We are great in America at comparing ourselves to one another. Let's start identifying with each other and maybe we'll get a lot further. And let's stop thinking that just because we sit on some kind of committee or we're part of some group, that we still have some kind of undue control over the processes of other people's lives. We are servants. And whatever happens with my campaign, one day I'm going to be sitting on that board, if it still exists after this campaign and doesn't end up falling apart because people feel like they can't trust it. If it doesn't grow, look, the Green Party has been around this state for many, many, many years, and it has struggled to grow even after the progressive influx. It's taken on a lot of new members, but it's still had a hard time growing. So just like anything, if you're showing weaknesses when you start up and people just don't feel like they can trust you, they're going to walk away and they're going to go with something that they're more sure of. And if you don't want that happening with our revolution, then open up the processes. Let's start talking about where our decisions are coming from and why we're getting to these things and getting rid of some of this stuff that doesn't even need to be there. Why does the endorsement committee even have that 10% anyway? There's enough in the questionnaire. Add to the questionnaire about the candidate. Maybe put in a section of links to articles, reports, or something like that. Maybe the campaign or maybe the endorsement committee can do that. Say, hey, here's our link of all the information we Googled on this candidate that we could compile for you as a member to vote on them. But don't pass your own judgment for the members as to the weight that they put on whether something. Some people might view an outsider candidate with a past that identifies with the constituency more viable than an establishment candidate who ran on establishment politics last time. Did you ever think of that? Because of the climate we live in today, people are looking for something different. So much so, they elected Donald Trump. I didn't make that up. It happened. So stop blaming the people who are trying to dig into the process and fix it for trying to fix it. And let's start looking at the processes for what they are independently and decide whether or not on the outside we could agree with that being part of a process that we want to be a part of. Anyway, I wanted to shoot this because people get this envisioned idea. First of all, look, this is my workstation. Okay, I've got I don't sit on my telephone doing this. Okay, so I'm not sitting there freaking out just because you see I type very fast. I type around 50 words a minute, and I do social media on my laptop when I'm at home working. So stop interpreting as I go through making points that they're always aggressive, because they're not. You don't have to be aggressive to stand up and to say, no, I don't agree with you. No, I don't agree with you. Bill Ham keeps going on about how ranked choice voting is this horrible idea, but he does not offer an alternative solution. So I'm sick of hearing him. And I'll tell him, listen, Bill, you're an idiot. You're going around in circles, you're wasting everybody's time, and you're not offering an alternative solution. So shut the hell up, because we're sick of hearing it. You're part of the problem when you do that. Now, if you don't like the fact that I was that direct towards somebody who's been so disrespectful and disruptive among the entire group, well, that's why you're not running. We need people who are going to step up and say, knock it off. I mean, we all applauded John McCain when he took the mic from that woman who was calling Obama a Muslim, and he wasn't born here. Well, he was statesman-like about it. You know what? Statesman has been getting us where we're at. I'm sick of statesmen. There's a lot of candidates out there who are not statesman-like, who are making waves and who have already gotten elected in special elections. So let's stop trying to categorize and box candidates in to these preconceived notions of what a candidate is supposed to sound like, look like, be like. What we need from candidates is honesty and integrity. That's what we need. I have absolutely no shame about any of the things in my past. when you consider the fact that I had drugs, sexual abuse, emotional abuse, physical abuse, and all those things up until the time that I was 18, and then you throw in some messed up years in my early 20s, and I'm still sitting here today with the kind of values and convictions I have, I'm pretty damn proud of myself, Sean. Open up and air my dirty laundry. I got nothing to hide from anybody. And the mere fact that you have any kind of inkling of judgment about me having dirty laundry just shows you haven't been paying attention and shouldn't be sitting in a position passing judgment on other people. Point made. Mic dropped. Thank you. I'll talk to you guys later.